As you walk along the sidewalk on the El Camino Real in Palo Alto, California, a bustling Silicon Valley main avenue and a stone's throw from Stanford University, it's hard to imagine that the small community where giants like Facebook and Google call home is also home to a growing number of vehicle dwellers. These are the people, and in many cases entire families, that have been forced to live in RVs, vans, or even their cars in order to continue working and keep their children in the local school. Many of the vehicle dwellers work in the service industry, or they're employed in support positions to Silicon Valley's tech giants. Northeast Valley News attempted to speak to people living along the El Camino Real, but most did not answer or did not want to be interviewed. The neighborhood schools do their best to aid the children who don't have addresses and live in their vehicles. School administrators and faculty take special care to respect the privacy of the children who are vehicle dwellers. One 10-year-old elementary student spoke to Any Valley News about a classmate who actually shared that she lived in her vehicle.
Me and my classmate were just sitting and we were talking about how all these houses are expensive lately, and then she said, we have to live in a car, and there's a lot of free food, which that's great because it's all amazing food, and we get desserts every Friday and whatever. And I kind of said to myself, oh, because I kind of knew that she was living in an RV or a van.
So why are these people parked along city streets and calling their vehicles home? Because there's simply no affordable housing in Palo Alto and the surrounding communities. The apartments and rental houses that were once affordable and available to these people are being demolished. New postings show up of yet another large apartment complex that will soon become a luxury home development. Shanna Bankson, a resident of Mountain View, knows this firsthand since about a year ago her own family and at least 100 other families were notified that the apartment complex where they were living would be demolished in order to make way for a new development project.
Well, 7 years ago when we moved here from Phoenix, I didn't see them. They just really weren't. Housing was hard to find out here, but we did find housing. And then I would say probably about a year after that, so about 2013, 2014, started slowly seeing RVs popping up, and there would be like a line of 3 of them, say, in a row on El Camino or just up the street near the big community park. And at first it was just kind of odd, like, oh, okay, maybe they're just, people in from out of town or whatnot. And then slowly they just started growing and growing and growing, and now there are just lines and lines of them. Even, I wouldn't say miles, but there will be certain parts of town where there are, 30 in a row, and especially driving down El Camino near Stanford, it's blocking all of the fields, all of the sports fields and stuff. You just see RV upon RV, and some of them look like they can still drive, and some of them look like they're just camped out and they've been there a while and they're going to stay there a while. It is a chronic problem. In fact, we lived across the street for the first 6 years that we lived here, and then we were served a notice of intent to demolish our building and the 58 other residents that lived in our complex, and we were told we had a year to find a new place to live. And so everyone was scrambling and panicking because housing is a true problem out here, and we were living in one of the only low cost, affordable housing in Mountain View, and now one more complex is taken away. And then you hear another one just up the street also had the big bad sign out front that they're getting demolished, and people were coming out and protesting and showing up to city council meetings saying, why is this happening? But unfortunately, money talks, and developers will snatch up these old rundown, and they're not even that rundown, but maybe the older, stuff that was built in the 50s and stuff, say, just tearing them down and building brand new row houses and multi-million-dollar, nothing that any of the residents that are living in the buildings currently could ever in a million years afford. Many of our students are living in vehicles, and it's very scary, and we do the district really works hard to make sure that these families get food. There are lots of programs that we have offering, food, and we did, one of our little clubs at school did a flashlight and battery drive. Things, just those little necessities that people will need as vehicle dwellers. But yes, many of my students, my kids' classmates are vehicle dwellers, sadly.
Vehicle dwellers.
That's what we call them, is vehicle dwellers. And we have homeless kids, and we have vehicle dwellers, and we treat, we treat the families similarly, in that we try and get them, the services and stuff that they need and the support that they need. But sadly, it's just become a fact that a good portion of our lower income families are living either in vehicles or in shelters. People are just priced out of rentals around here. They're dwindling, and they're just it's the new pattern of just wiping down the old apartment buildings, building these multi-million-dollar row
Where they
houses.
could have afforded before is what you're...
Correct,
okay.
yes. And building these multi-million-dollar houses that, of course, no one can afford except for the techies that move in, and work for Google or work for Facebook and live in for a couple of years and then move on to their next tech job. But they're not really... Not all, obviously, but the majority of them are not really here to stay, to invest in the community and to invest in the city and raise their families.
Right.
Some do, of course, but many of them are, young tech people, and they, rotate around from company to company, go to San Francisco and then come back here. And, it's just kind of the nature of the beast here in Silicon Valley. But it's really sad and scary for the people whose roots are here and who've lived here maybe for generations, and now they're being priced out of their homes and their communities and their families. And many of them have long-standing jobs, and they want to keep their jobs. They want to have their kids stay in the same school. And the best option is to just buy an RV or, move in and just do the best you can until you feel like you can get
something affordable.
Get something affordable.
So you're saying...
And in fact, if you drive down Castro Street, which is our main strip in Mountain View, you will see in every single restaurant and retail shop help wanted signs, because simply no one can afford, who works retail or works in the service industry, can afford to pay rent in this town.